Welcome to this Mekko Graphics training video. Today I'm going to show you how to use the Preference Manager to save time when creating charts. The Preference Manager allows you to select fonts, formats, colors, and other time-saving settings that you can use when you create or edit a chart. It's helpful when you're bringing in a chart from an older presentation or using a chart from a coworker's presentation because it allows you to update these charts using your Preference Manager settings. If there are edits you make every time you create a chart, like the font size, chart margins, or the placement of the axis title, I encourage you to check your Preference Manager settings to see if this is something you can set once and apply to all charts. It'll save you a great deal of time. Let me show you how the Preference Manager works. So from Mekko Graphics, in the PowerPoint ribbon, select Preference Manager. And you'll see two tabs in the Preference Manager. The first is for colors, and the second is for settings. Let's start with settings. Let's take a tour of all of the defaults that are available to you using the Preference Manager. You can choose whether you want patterns on your charts or no patterns. Patterns are typically used if you're going to print in black and white, or if that's the standard that you use across your company. You can choose whether you want your segment borders to be black or white. In this case, I choose white, but some people like black, so they stand out a little bit better. You can choose the position of your y-axis title. The default is horizontal, but some people like top tick aligned, which is pegged to the top of the axis, or vertical. I'll choose vertical. You can also choose whether you want the units or currency on the y-axis to be displayed only at the top or everywhere. I'm going to put it everywhere. You can choose to change your line widths in this section. Here are some chart defaults that are time-saving features. You can tell Mekko Graphics to automatically use blank series and bar names on the chart. You can also say place all labels on the chart. So that means if you have a bunch of segments or series in a chart, Mekko Graphics will automatically place them on the chart so you can edit them. In this section, you can format the numbers on your chart. I'm going to deselect auto and choose to have my negative numbers shown with parentheses versus the negative sign. Here it's picking up the default font, but I like Century Gothic, so I'm going to choose that. Now in the font size section, you can save a lot of time by making some choices here that you use across all of your charts. I tend to make all of the fonts on my chart the exact same size, and that tends to be 10. So I'm going to choose 1010 for my maximum minimum. And sometimes you will use a smart place that's small, but I don't like to go smaller than 9 because it makes it too hard to read. If you're one of the people who's constantly adjusting the margins for your charts, you can change the settings here. And I know a lot of people like to reduce the margin on the right of the chart or the top of the chart. Now those are the options that I've selected, so if I click OK, and then I go into this chart that I created, double click on it, and choose Apply PM Settings, you'll see how some of my settings changed. You can see that the units and currency are shown on the y-axis and that my font changed. I think those are the only obvious ones from this chart. So let's go back into the Preference Manager and talk about color. On this tab of the Preference Manager, you can edit a color palette or create a new color palette. Let's start by editing a color palette. You can see in the standard section down below, these are the color palettes that are available to me. Some of these I loaded from Mekko Graphics palettes available on the website, and some of them are the default palettes that ship with the product. So I'm going to go and select PowerPoint Standard. This is a default palette. I'm going to edit that palette, and you'll see what I'm able to do here. You can see all the colors in this palette. You can see the draw order that they will be used in and what a sample bar would look like. And it is a lot of colors. So I would like to simplify this palette. So I'm going to take the paler colors in the palette. I'm holding down the Shift key and I'm selecting all of these. And I'm going to delete them from the palette. Now you can see I have far fewer colors in the palette and a lot brighter, more saturated color palette. Now I need to go to the no shading section and choose colors for each type of chart. For bar chart, I'll choose that green, take a dark blue for a line, take the red for the bubble, and on a scatter, I'll do orange. And when I use a Gantt chart, what do I want my header background color to be? This bluish gray. And my time period highlight, I'll choose teal. Now say there's one color in this palette that I'm just not that fond of and I want to adjust it. So this lime is okay, but I really prefer a slightly different shade. So I can click on that color, select edit, and I can either alter the RGB values or I can drag the selecting arrow and change the color that way. Now I need to save this as a new theme. So I'm going to call this Modified PPT and save this palette. And if I go up to the custom palettes, you can see that Modified PPT is now one of my options. And I can choose whether I want to show that in the user interface, which is the drop-down menu for color that I can use when I'm creating a Mekko Graphics chart. I can also choose to set it as my default if I'd like. So in this case, I'm just going to choose to show it in the user interface. Now let's create a palette from scratch. Click on New. And the white, black, and shades of gray are automatically loaded, but I can add other colors from a file. So in this case, I could add it from a PowerPoint theme file if there's a particular theme that you use for your presentations. Or I'm going to use one of the Mekko Graphics color palettes. In this case, I'm going to choose the Modern palette, which is available on the Mekko Graphics website. I select that, and you can see all of the colors in that palette are loaded. And now I can choose my draw order. Or I can edit this palette and pull out the colors that I don't like. So in this case, I'm going to make a really simple palette. So I'm just going to select 5 colors from the Mekko Graphics palette and make that a very clean and simple color palette that I use for all of my charts. And there are my 5 colors. And I select my no shading colors again. Same ones. I'm going to use the same for everything, this medium turquoise everywhere. I need to tell it what to do with my Gantt. And that background, we'll make it gray. And we'll use that turquoise as the highlight color. And then let's call this Modern 5. So this is a palette that I created off of the Modern palette, but it only contains 5 colors. Now there are lots of considerations when selecting a palette. You may choose to use a palette like Modern 5, which I'm going to set as my default here, that only has a few colors if you're trying to adhere to your brand standards, and those are the only approved colors that you're allowed to use. Or if you just like a clean and simple look. You can also choose a palette. Above here I've got a Modern palette that has maybe 25 colors in it if you like a lot more variety in your chart coloring. So let's click off. So let's go to a new slide and let's insert a Mekko chart. It's opening the data editor, but you can see that now if my chart defaults only include the colors that I set in my palette. So now what do you do if you get a chart from a coworker or you're bringing in a chart from an old presentation that was created using different settings? So this is a chart that was created using the Subdued Spectrum palette. Let me show you how you can update this based on your new Preference Manager settings. If you double click on this chart, you click on Apply PM Settings in the Edit Chart ribbon, and you can see that that chart is updated with all of your Preference Manager settings. So I've got my vertical axis title, I've got my change in font, and I've got just the colors that I selected in my updated palette. Thank you for watching this Mekko Graphics training video. For more videos, please visit our website.